Available on my web space, I have a zip file for version 1.1, private beta, September 2008. And so a lot of you probably downloaded this and were like, oh yeah, I'm going to try this out, see what it's like. But then you get an invalid socket error. Try the debug. Nope, still invalid socket error. This was actually due to a DRM of sorts that we used during 2.0's development to discourage leaks. So a few people asked me about this, and it actually turns out that I have the source code to the little server app that allows these lockdown versions to run. So we'll just go and open it up here. And we'll go ahead and run it. So it's running, it's waiting for the connection. I'll run this again. Still doesn't work. Well, why is that? Well, a couple different reasons. Number one, this is looking for a web address that doesn't exist anymore. ssntales.isa-geek.net. You can edit your host file to change this, but we're going to do something else here that completely eliminates the need for that. The second problem is that the version string isn't going to match. So you'll see here that what's in the source code right now is for a private beta from May of 2009, which was, I guess, the last version that we used this with till we kind of gave up to hurry up and get everything out the door in the next couple months. So let's start with the easy things, and let's go ahead and change the web address so it's not pointing to that unused DNS name anymore. So we're going to use a hex editor called HXD. It's free to download, works great for this purpose. And say we're just going to take the SRB2 win, drop it in here. We can take a look at everything in here. We want to look for that web address. And we're searching for a text string. Oh, there it is. So what we can do is we can put our cursor at the start of this host name. Just put 127.0.0.1. Now, since this is a C program, they use null terminated strings. So you put the cursor here, and we can put a null terminator right there. Now, just for cleanliness sake, I like to just pad out the rest of the string with zeros until it's exactly the same length that we started with. And we'll do another search to make sure we don't find anything. We're good. Hit save. Alright, so that should do it, right? We've got our little server app running. And we will run exe again. See, now it says unable to connect for verification. Huh. Well, why is that? It should be able to connect to our local machine here, right? Well, the problem is not with SRB2 itself. The problem is actually with this little server app. So one of the things that it used to do, because I only tested and ran this on my own machine back in the day, is that it bound to a specific network adapter on the computer. Well, with modern Windows, you don't really just have just a single network adapter on your machine anymore. You usually have a couple of them. And coupled with that, there's Windows Firewall, Windows Defender, all those other things that can get in the way nowadays from this listening on the correct network adapters that it needs to. So I did a little digging, and the fix for that was actually pretty easy. You just had to change this one line here and have it listen instead of a specific address from here. you just use this constant and address any. And that makes it listen on all the network adapters on your system, so you cannot possibly miss which one you're supposed to use. So we'll go ahead and we'll run this again. And then we will run SRB2 again. And it says, you are not allowed to have this. Well, I guess I'm just a leaky leaker, aren't I? So what do we do now? Well, our hint is right up here. Private beta, May 9th, 2009. Well, what was the date on this one? Well, it's September 24th, 2008. So let's try Sep 24th, 2008. We'll run this again. Still says we're not allowed to have this. Well, that's actually because it's not SEPT, it's SEP. So we've got it running again. Now let's try it. A little bit further this time. Is it okay? Aha, it loads. Now the only thing that's annoying is that on modern systems, the full screen direct draw mode doesn't work anymore. That's why more modern versions of 2.1 and 2.2 use the SDL2 layer for drawing to the screen. But what we can do is that instead of having the windowed mode work at 320 by 200, we can make this bigger. So to figure out what to do next, let's use some source code of versions that we do have available to us, and specifically in this file win_vid.c. Here you'll see that there is an array with a single element that kind of defines this windowed mode here. And you'll see there's a string, which is what you'll see in the video options and the settings in the game itself. And then you have numbers representing the width, the height, and the number of pixels per row. You'll see there's two functions also further down the file here for this bdib mode. That's using WinG. It's one of the oldest ways of quickly sending graphics to the screen in Windows. It was available even in versions of Windows 3.1, actually. So there's a couple function calls here. Should be two of them. Yeah, the rest are just comments. So we have these two functions right here that also have hard-coded numbers for width, height, and then this looks also to be to the height of the screen. So we need to be able to change in the exe file itself this element in this array and the two function calls that we have right here. So what that means is that we're going to want to change 3 different places in the exe to get what we want. And by the way, this technique also works for older versions of SRB2 as well. So like if you want to get demo 2, demo 3, demo 4, final demo to be able to run at a higher windowed resolution, you can also use this technique to achieve this. So we're going to go back to our hex editor, and then we're going to load the exe file again, and we're going to use this find feature, and we can actually look for integer numbers. So 200 might be a little hard to find, but we can definitely easily find a 320. And let's start out looking at it's a 32-bit application, so let's try using searching for an int32. And so here's our first one. So 4001 is the little endian version of 320 in hexadecimal here. I like this little handy tool from analogx.com. I don't know if that website's still up. but here you'll see it says 0140. Now this is in big endian format, so little endian you need to swap the order of the bytes. That's why it's 0401. But we want to make sure that there's a 200 also near this 320, because 320 is used a lot throughout the source code, especially for the HUD drawing, for calculating positions of icons and like score time rings on the screen. So let's see what 200 is. That's going to be C800. So do we see a C800 nearby? I don't. I just see the 320. So let's try doing another search. Let's keep going through. There's another 320 that doesn't have a 200 near it. Try it again. And oh, see right here, we have a C800 and then a 4001. So there's your 200 and 320. Well, what happens if we would change one of these? Let's try going for 640 by 400 for our initial goal. Or you know what, actually, because it's 2.0, a lot of the older SRB2 versions can only go do 640 by 400 for max resolution. Because this is a 2.0 beta, we can actually take this to 1280 by 800. So opening up the calculator here, we'll put in 1280. And that gives us 0005, since remember, it has to be backwards for little endian. So we'll put in 0005. And we won't edit anything else for now. We're just going to save this and see what happens. And remember that these are the 2 bytes that we changed. So we're going to go back to the exe, run it, and see if we notice anything different. And of course I have to have the application running, the server application. Alrighty. So that might not be one that we're looking for. So let's go ahead and just change this back and look for the next one. And what we should probably do first is search for that string that shows up in the video options, because that's going to get us close to where those other variables are from this array. It should be right around the same place. See, there it is. Okay. This is just a string, and you don't want to make the string larger than it already is, because you'll mess with the way the memory is laid out in the executable. So we're just gonna put in 999 by 800, even though really it's 1280, but we don't want to use any extra digits here. So you'll see that a little bit further down from there's a 4001 and a C08. And another 4001. Well, if we remember looking back at the source code, we have a 320, a 200, and a 320. So here we have a 320, a 200, and a 320. Aha! So those are the things that we need to edit to be able to change this data structure here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's take this and change it to 1280, the 0005, and then the 800 is going to be 2003 in little endian, and then 0005. We can save it, go back to the file, let's run it. Well, I guess that kind of worked. Yeah, so it made the game draw 1280 by 800, but it didn't actually create the window size that we need so we can actually see everything. And that's because we're missing, still modifying these 2 function calls right here to what we need them to be. So let's hop back here to the editor and we'll do another search. And we're going to search for 320 again. But this time, they're actually not 32-bit integers for some reason when they get compiled. They end up being 16 bits. So let's just do a good search for that. Well, there's a 320 right there, but I don't see, there's a 1280. Yeah, that doesn't look like that's right. So let's look again. Nope. Because we need to have a C800 also accompany this. So it turns out there's actually one other function that we're missing here in a separate file. Here in winmain.c. It's the win32 function create window ex. And you'll see here there's also a 320 by 200. So we need to find this particular function call, and we can help us do that by looking for this legacy WC string. In later versions of the source code though, including 2.0 betas, it's actually not legacy WC, it's SRB2 WC. And you'll see here in the hex editor we found it, but it's among a whole bunch of other strings. And unfortunately that's because in C programs, if a string is outside of a data structure and is just a literal string in the code somewhere, the compiler tends to take those and pack them all together in one section of the exe file. So it's not going to help us try to find the create window function call with this 320 and 200 right here. So we're going to have to continue our hunt and see if we can find where this is in the file. And another thing I didn't mention earlier, if you do change some bytes and they end up not being the ones you need, do change them back. If you change too many things, too many wrong things, you're going to start breaking the program, or you're going to end up with random crashes and things like that while you're playing the game. Okay, I think I found it, because if we take this one and we change it to 1280.0005, save, run. Aha, see, it changed the size of the window. So we're getting closer. Alright, is there a C800 around here? Yes, there is. It comes right the line before it. So let's change that. Run it. Okay, good. So we've got the window the right size, we've got the game rendering at the right size, but we're not blitting or drawing the pixel data to the window in the right resolution. So that's the last piece we need to find here. If you remember, those are the function calls here in winvid.c with the set div bits to device, or DI bits, device independent. So we have to find this one next. It's going to have the 320 followed by two 200s. Although that can be deceiving because it's not always in the same order. So here we found two 200s right after each other, C8, C8, but then you have the 320 here. Let's go ahead and change these C8s and see what happens. 2003, 2003, set them to 800 pixels. We're not going to touch the horizontal one for now, just to see if this is what we're looking for. Sure enough, and we're now drawing all the way down the whole vertical length of the screen. So does that mean that this 320 here is the one we need to change to 1280? Let's do that. Run it. And there you go. Now, one thing I will note that we didn't change is that it's back here in the code. We have two sets of these set DI bits to device functions. One of them is for the loading screen, and the other one is for actual rendering of the game. Because you'll notice that when we initially start, just really quickly for a split second, you'll see that the splash screen does not fit the window. See, it drew in that little 320 by 200 corner up in the top. So if we really want to, we can go ahead and we can also fix that. And because it's the exact same function call, we know we can expect the format or the arrangement of the bytes to be the same. So let's look again for two sets of 200 and then a 320 next to it. So we got two sets of 200 here and then a 320 after it, just like the other one. So let's go ahead and change this. Becomes 0005. Save it. So let's see if that's it. Yep, see, the splash screen filled the screen, and so there we go. We successfully were able to remove the DRM and have the new server application work with listening to any network adapter on your local machine. And we were able to change the exe file to point to your local host, and we changed the default windowed resolution from 320 by 200 to 1280 by 800. Much better. So if you're interested in trying this yourself, I encourage you to give it a try. You can use this exe as a way to start, and maybe even load up some old Demo 1, Demo 2, Demo 3, Demo 4, 435, and see if you can do the same thing to those. I will note though that with the older demo versions, you should only try to do 640 by 400, not 1280 by 800. I did attempt to do that to the February 2000 prototype, and it just wouldn't take. I believe those old versions only have internal memory that allocate up to 1024 by 768, but you want to use a multiple of 320 by 200. That's going to give you the best results.